Welcome to the Landscaping Podcast. My name is Joel Barnett and I'm your host. And in today's episode, I'm talking with Matt Hiner from Hiner Outdoor Living. And Matt runs a landscape design and construction company based in Colorado Springs. And some of the water features he builds are absolutely incredible. And also with the background of the mountains of the Rockies, it's some pretty special projects that he works on, and some of the designs are equally as impressive as their background. In this chat, we talk about how Matt started out and the strategy he used to start out with the minimal funds that he had to start with. And then we go on to talk about how he empowers his staff so that, because he's got about 23 staff, I think, at the moment. So you can't go around having your fingerprint on every piece of, on every rock that gets put in place. So he talks about how he went about doing that. And my favorite part about what Matt's doing is he's looking to expand into the complete outdoor living package. So it's really fascinating and inspiring to hear how he's going about doing that and hear the obvious passion he's got for what he's doing as well. And as I mentioned to Matt at the end of this chat, I couldn't have enjoyed this chat more with him. The time was just flying by, even though I was recording it at 10 p.m. at night, our time, which was about 6 a.m. for him. But yeah, I just loved having the chat with someone who's as passionate and knowledgeable about what they do. So hopefully you enjoy this chat with Matt Hiner. Matt, thank you for joining us on the Landscaping Podcast. My first question for you is, how did you start in the industry?
How'd I got started in the industry? It started really as a high school job. My dad built houses and I just got hired onto the landscaping crew. And when I say landscape crew, I use that term loosely because it was me and one other guy. And he was like a 50-something-year-old one-eyed Vietnamese man named Henley. And so he ran a tight ship. I couldn't get away with anything. I was 15 years old and he had me doing everything. So I learned all the basic skills of the trade, just working underneath him, and kind of just did that for gas money and, beer money, and just kind of stuck with it. And then met my wife at an early age. I was probably 19 when I met her, and realized that, well, if I'm going to settle down, I need to provide and lean back on the only trade that I knew, which was landscaping. And so got a job just continuing to landscape and just kind of kept going from there.
So what sort of work was the company you worked for after that doing?
I worked for a company called Brickman, which merged with Valleycrest, and those two separately were like the two largest companies. And then when they merged, they came together and created Brightview. And so they're more of like a commercial maintenance and service provider. And I learned real quick that, one, I don't like maintenance. I'm allergic to grass. And so, and then the other part is I really like the creativity side of things. And so sticking in residential backyards just kind of married the two, where I got to be outside, create with my hands, and tap into that creativity where I could, imagine something and then see it come to life, was just kind of the perfect recipe for me to kind of, just provide a service for the world.
So how did you go about, how did you leave that company and what did you do after that?
It was easy to leave that one because what happened was, one, I was being underpaid, and I went from, I learned real early on, like, what I never wanted to do as an employer. And I kind of started out young there, but then within 2 years, I was running all the crews and I was working 60 hours, 70 hours a week. And come to find out, like, some of these guys that they hired on that were working underneath me that were just running mow crews, they were paying more than me. And I caught wind of that. And I was like, man, that's not right. And so when I talked to my boss, he's like, oh, well, it was because he has a college degree. And I'm like, in what? To cut grass. I'm like, how is that helping him at all? And so anyways, that kind of just didn't sit well. And so that gave me the desire to move on. And I was speaking with, I had one other job before I went out on my own. And I was speaking with one of our subcontractors in the middle of the night plowing snow. And he was like, hey, Matt, have you ever thought about owning your own company? And I was like, yeah, actually I have. And it's something that's always been a desire of mine. He's like, well, I'm trying to figure out how to retire and get out of this business. What if you came and worked for me and bought the business, and then I can retire and you can continue on. And so at the time I thought that was a great deal. So I moved over there, worked for him for a summer. That was 06, 07 when we had the huge just real estate mortgage crash and the economy just went into the toilet. And long story short, rather than buying him out, I found myself laid off, unemployed about 2 weeks before Christmas, just sitting around going, all right, well, I guess that didn't really work out the way that I thought it would. And so, and he only, in all fairness, he laid me off with what we call job attached unemployment. And that was just to go home for the winter season and then come back in the spring. And I'm not wired in a way where I can just kind of sit still. So I'm just constantly moving, having to do something. And so I decided to just take that unemployment check of $300, and I had a logo design and some business cards drawn up and printed, and boom, I just said, I'm in business. And so I just went for it.
So is that a common thing in the US? Because it's not something I hear to the companies that plow snow, that shut down for winter, so all their staff just become unemployed for 5 months or whatever it is.
Yeah, it is pretty common out here, just being that you've got a lot of the equipment and resources to kind of create a year-round employment opportunity for team members. And so plowing snow is just that natural, hey, well, we're not outside building backyards, so let's go shovel the snow. And we did that for years, and we got out of it about 3-4 years ago. And that was a lifestyle investment not to have to do that. We weren't getting much revenue out of it, and being able to sleep through the night when it's snowing and wake up and just drink a cup of coffee is way more worth it to me than the extra few bucks of chasing snowflakes or white gold, as they call it here. So.
Yeah, it's from what I hear, because I listen to a fair few US podcasts, and if you set up for it right, you can make good money out of it. But for the rest of it, it's just a nightmare to have to do.
It is. It's the most thankless job I've ever done in my life.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there's not much creativity involved in that either.
No. And all the people that work with me, they're all fairly creative. And so it's, they're not just built to work. They just want to go create things. And so they weren't wanting to do it. So it's hard for me to motivate them. And anyways, just not a good fit for us.
Yeah. So had you always had plans to have your own business?
I always kind of had that bug in me and that desire to try and figure out how I can be in business for myself. I never knew exactly how or what it was going to look like to get into it. But I think that's just kind of the beauty of entrepreneurship is you don't know. You just kind of lean in and go for it.
Yeah. But the best landscaper I work for told me just make it up as you go. That's what he does a lot of the time, and just fake it till you make it to a point.
Yeah, it's the truth. It really is.
Because you can go to school and learn all sorts of different things, but there's nothing like doing it on the job.
Yeah.
So how did you go about getting work to start with? Were you just handing out business cards to anyone who'd take them?
I had a couple strategies, and both of them involved $0 because I had spent all my money on a logo and business card. And so the first one was I had just kind of gone to all my suppliers that I'd built relationships with and let them know that, hey, I was just going out on my own. And that conversation actually started hey, well, we've got a home and garden show booth that we're going to be installing next month. Would you be willing to come help us design it and install it? And in exchange, you can stand in the booth and pass out flyers. And I was like, sure. I don't have anything but time. I can't sit around. And so I helped them that week. We built out their booth, and I stood there and I got my first couple of leads that way. And back then it was Craigslist was a thing, which was kind of like an online posting ad deal. Kind of Facebook Marketplace has replaced the need for Craigslist. I think it's still alive, but I haven't been to it in several years. But you could make a posting. And so I made a couple of like advertisements, just posted my logo and a couple of landscapes that I had done and just said landscaper for hire, basically, and got a couple bites that way. The economy was bad. I had zero overhead. And so I was basically just bidding things to make a wage in the beginning. So it was easy for me to kind of at least stay somewhat busy.
Did you learn much about how to quote for jobs from anyone you'd work for, or you're just making it up as you go?
I totally made it up. I figured, I knew how to estimate materials, and I knew that, all right, well, I could take the plan, I could do a basic takeoff, I could figure out how many materials I need. So I took that basic information, and then I would just go price it out from the price list from all the suppliers. I would go sit down at the irrigation shop and just say, hey, this is what I need to irrigate. What parts do I need? How do I go about designing it? They were a huge help helping me figure out the basic, trades of irrigation. And then I would just kind of factor in, well, based on other jobs that I've done, this should take me about this long. And so I just factor in that. At the time, I knew nothing about overhead. I knew nothing about advertisement, truck payments, insurance. I sold my first job to an insurance agent. In fact, he was like a higher up insurance agent. And I sell him the job, and he goes, hey, can I see your proof of insurance? And I was like, yeah, yes, you can. I'll get that over as soon as I can. So I took his deposit check, put it in the bank, went and found an insurance guy, got a policy written up, got it printed out, and and delivered it to him. He probably got that, looked at the policy start date, and just said, well, he's got it. You can start work. Looking back, you probably totally had me figured out.
Yeah. Hopefully it wasn't the same company he worked for.
Right. Yeah.
So, and you've got a fair few staff now. So how did you build up to that? Did you have put someone on early on?
Yeah, I think even in year one, I had hired just a single helper, and that would allow me to get the jobs done faster. Because one, I had somebody that would keep us motivated, and we would just get the wheelbarrows done and keep the pace going. And then two, if I needed to leave for an estimate, I would be able to just tell Carlos, hey, we need to get this done. I'll be back in a couple hours. I'll pick up some material. I got an estimate, and then I'll be back. And so it all started with just one, and then it spins off into, continually find, oh, well, we're busy enough, I need a second guy. And then it's busy enough to where, I need to just start getting more time just to do this. And then it turned into, all right, well, I've got all this paperwork, all this admin stuff, and I loathe this type of work. So it's like the next big move for me, once I kind of got a crew figured out, was getting a part-time office staff member, and just finding them part-time to be able to come in, do what they needed to do, and then bounce out. It just kind of snowballs, and just figure out what needs to get done, what can be a job, and just figuring out, all right, well, this is kind of a job description, let's hire that person and keep going with it.
Yeah. And when did you start doing your own designs? Was that straight away?
Yeah, that was right away. Just kind of in the beginning, I thought it was, you needed to provide the free design to get the job. And I learned through a lot of heartache, because I would get an opportunity, I wouldn't charge them. I didn't know how to have a budget conversation. I would just meet up and be like, hey, Joel, what do you want for your backyard? Awesome. I'd go back and I would draw it all up. I would spend hours figuring out every single plant, and I would put like hours upon hours. I would put like 40 hours into a design. It would just be a little napkin, something that would take me like 15 minutes now. Yeah. And I would go present it, and then poof, I would never hear from them ever again. I'd be like, what, do they have no respect for the time and effort that I put in this? I would get so pissed. And it's just like, I had to learn the hard way to ask the right questions and not blame them, and then blame myself for providing them a free service and then expecting something for, not setting proper expectations. And so, by learning to charge for the design, it allowed me to set the proper expectations, not get blown up. I'd have people, I'd get the design and I would never hear from them ever again. Like, they would never return my calls. They hired somebody else, and I'd design, propose, all that kind of stuff. And so
then you drive past their house, and there's a garden that you designed, you can see it exactly the same way.
I've seen that. Yeah, that's happened to me several times too. And I like to call those alligator bites. You gotta make some mistakes and get bit in the ass a little bit before you learn what works and what doesn't. And, the pain has to be high enough to motivate the change. And so after getting burned a few times, I realized I really needed to come up with a better process to our sales deal. And so started just reading forums and all that kind of stuff and realizing, hey, you can actually charge for designs. And I didn't have a lot of belief that I was like a good designer at the time, because I didn't go to school for it. I didn't, have a landscape architecture degree. I was just a kid that grew up building retaining walls and building yards and had some basic creativity skills. And so I would draw these things out, and I started just selling them at like $150, and then just going on up from now. And now, now I've got designs that are bigger than some people's whole yards, that I've sold. So it's pretty cool. Just where I started to where I'm at now. It's crazy to think that this has just been a whole journey. So
yeah, it's also crazy how much better your designs can be when you've got a bigger budget to work with, and the people who are paying that, they spend more on the design. That was the biggest thing I found. I doubled the price of my designs, and my designs got better. Because like my skills haven't changed. It's just what you've got to work with. So you get more.
You get to use nicer finishes. You get to put more creativity. You get to think of the different things, more plantscape. It's So
because you've got a certain amount of area that you have to fill in. So you don't want the budget to go to all the basic filler stuff. You want to have a bit of killer as well.
Exactly.
So were you working on the tools and then you gradually stepped off them?
I did. Yeah, I was. I think the fact that I was blessed with some mild case of ADHD helped me like just kind of bounce around from place to place. And so I learned pretty early on that if I just gave good direction and good leadership and just kind of set proper expectation of, hey guys, I would like to see you get done with this, and this, and then I could leave for a few hours and come back and be like, hey, they actually got that done. And then it got easier and easier and easier. There's some things that like the water features for years, like I had to place every key stone and like every big rock, every big boulder. And I had this young guy coming up, and he really wanted to do it. And I would I would let him start to make something. I'd come back and be like, oh God, it's so ugly. And I'd go change things. And then I think I could see like his face and just the discouragement by, just kind of ruining everything that he had just worked a day. And I would undo it and I'd rebuild it in like 3 hours, and or in an hour, I would undo like a whole day's worth of work and rebuild it. And he was just like, and so I think he was starting to feel defeated. And I learned that I needed to let go a little bit. And I just had to realize that, my expectations were right here, like way up here with what it needed to look like. And the client's expectations were kind of right here. So as long as we were following somewhere in between, I had a happy client, and I just needed to check my ego at the door and just know that I'm building up somebody else's skill set here. And now my skills are right here, and this guy's skills have far surpassed what my capabilities are to build waterfalls. It just took what seemed like 4 or 5 years before he really started building some art. But now I can just take a spray can and go, all right, here's the shape, and this is the color rock, and boom, it's just a masterpiece, and it's better than I could have done myself.
Yeah. I'm kind of in that transition period at the moment of sort of letting go, and it's exactly the same as what you're saying. The client's expectations are lower, and the employees' levels are above their expectations still. Like we were working on a project with another landscape company because it was a big one, and it made me realize how much better we are than I think we are when you compare yourself to other companies who exceed the other clients' expectations still. So it's not a bad thing to have those high expectations, but you've also got to
it's not.
Calm down.
It keeps you driven, keeps you pushing the guys, because if you show up and just say everything looks great, then what's going to motivate them to want to do better and try and just raise the bar? And I think what's helped us succeed is we've really bred a culture of it with extreme candor, and it's just the ability to step back and understand one another that we are trying to build excellence here and create excellence. And we might need to have some difficult conversations, and we might need to just pick it apart and just ask ourselves, what could we have done better? What would you change? We're not going to change it unless it's wrong. But from a creativity standpoint, let's stand back. Let's look at those waterfalls. Let's dissect this a little bit and figure out what we could do different on the next one, what we wanted to try on this one, but didn't. And then on the next one, we live by one of our mottos here, and it's one of our core values: better than yesterday. So let's just build this a little bit better than the one we did yesterday. And so that's how we just kind of keep, you put the compound effect into work, and it just overnight the flip just switches, and then you just go from building what you think looks like turds to just building masterpieces.
Yeah, that's one of I remember back when I first started landscaping, I was blown away at how you can just turn a patch of dirt, which is just nothing, into an amazing landscape. And I still love doing that.
It's the best feeling. And just knowing that, especially the water features for me, because I was hanging out at a client's house the other night, and everybody came home, and one by one, they were all just coming to the backyard, and the fire pit's going, and the water features going, the lights are coming on, and they're like, yeah, this is our evening routine. We just are out here every chance we get. And it's like, that's awesome. I love hearing that. So
it's hard. I find I need to consciously reflect on that kind of thing sometimes, because when you're working on a project, you get a bit caught up in the how it's all going together and what you need to do next time and all that sort of thing. Whereas I don't sit back enough and appreciate what we've done. And you've built your company up pretty massively. So do you spend much time reflecting on how far you've come?
Probably not as much as I should as well, because I think it's easy. You can just get head down, you're in the grind. And I think having these conversations with people like you really helped me go, wow, it is kind of cool to see how far we really have come. And, because I also surround myself with other people that are much larger than me, that make me feel like the small company still. And I think that's what's important, is to surround yourself with people that continue to make you feel small. So that way it keeps you hungry, keeps you motivated, and keeps you sharp, because that's where you're going to learn the next skill set that you're going to need for the next step in your business. And so, if we're at the $4 to $5 million range, I'm hanging around people that are in that $10 million revenue range, and just figuring out, well, what positions do you have? You have a CFO. Like, I don't have a CFO. What does that even stand for? It's like, these are the questions that you ask yourself, and you just find by figuring it out as you go.
Yeah. So where do you meet those kind of people? Like, do you have a landscape association or any like industry association?
Yeah, I think industry associations are a great place to go. At seminars are a great place to go. Go into a place where you're going to go better yourself or go learn something, because that's going to be where other people are going to better themselves and learn some things. I'm also part of a industry peer group where there's 15 of us. We all have landscaping companies, and we're all somewhat similar revenues, but we're all outside of each other's service areas. And so we get together face to face twice a year, but then we also have Zoom meetings where we put all of our P&Ls onto the same spreadsheet, so we can compare each other's like business numbers, and that just really helps us make sure that we're sharp. And then it's always facilitated with somebody that's kind of several steps ahead. And so you've kind of got this sage or this mentor that's kind of helping guide the group a little bit, and so it's a nice accountability. So that's another place where I try and meet some of these people.
Yeah, so that's like a mastermind kind of group thing.
Exactly.
Yeah. And something I've seen you've done recently, or your plans are, which I think is awesome, I just love the idea of it, is you're looking to expand into doing like a full outdoor experience and providing everything that people use outdoors. Like I've seen you've done a fire pit with your own branding on it, and you're looking to expand more on that.
Yeah. Yes. I've kind of, along the whole theme of figuring it out as you go, like one day I opened up a retail shop to sell, pond supplies and aquatic plants and that kind of stuff. And then I had to make the conscious decision. I need to grow this and add more products, or I need to shut this down because it's just not sustaining itself. And so, when I I'm not one to give up on something lightly, especially when I feel like I can make it work. And so the idea was, well, what if we could, add barbecues and outdoor furniture? And then that turned into, well, how can we display these things? People don't necessarily know they want a water feature until they see it and experience it. And I can always get people to want to sign off on that water feature if they're there looking at it. So we started building little displays, and then I've seen other people that have had success with displays. And so then the other day, or then one day, we were going through IKEA, and they've kind of mastered the art of this maze of little apartment rooms with different, feels and that kind of stuff. And the idea hit me, what if we did this with water features and patios and outdoor living, where I combined the fire pit and this kind of finish and this type of water feature, and just bundled it up and create these different garden vignettes where people can kind of come and experience, and they can sit down and slow down and then go, oh man, this is nice. And then look down, go, oh, I like this couch. This is kind of nice. Oh, they sell this here. And then it pops them into the retail store. And while they're in the retail store shopping, they see this room with glass walls, and they can look in. It's the design center, and they can see people in there getting their backyard designed and presented to them, and just kind of inspire them to go, just planting seeds like, hey, let's get these guys to like want to be in that room someday, and just kind of set that as kind of like a goal or a status symbol, just where people were hanging out and just being, I want this in my backyard all the time. How cool would that be? And then the idea that I liked about that was, what if we could expand on the lifetime value of the customer? Oftentimes when we have these nice projects that we do, we've got nothing but, people are typically in their mid 40s to mid 60s. They've established themselves. They finally got some disposable income, and they're ready to build something nice. Now, that doesn't mean that they didn't always have the desire to have nice things. They just didn't have the money to, spend the 100,000 plus into that backyard then. But what if I could capture them earlier on in the process, like when they're in their 20s or 30s, and they don't want that $200 home, big box grill that's going to, rust out in a year or two. What if I can get them in, and they could buy a nice grill from us, get introduced to the Hiner brand and the quality that we, stand behind and provide, and meet our staff, and we can get their information. Then we can retarget them to where it's like, hey, while you're here getting a grill, you're here in a water feature. What if we just came in and installed just a water feature until you're ready to build that, that dream house of yours? And so that's the idea that we're moving towards with creating that whole experience. And as we've been building things, I couldn't find like just a modern looking fire pit. So I found a local fabricator and came up with a couple of ideas and sketches and said, hey, can you make this? And he made it, and we got a great positive response on it. And I was like, well, let's put the little Hiner logo on that and, see what that does. Let's brand it a little bit. And then, through just kind of the creative process, we decided to split the brand a little bit. So we've got Hiner Outdoor Living, which is going to be more of the construction side of things. And we've got Hiner & Co., which is going to be more of the retail and the product side of things. So, because I figured, well, if we start making these fire pits, I'd love to sell these to all my friends on Instagram and ship these all over the world if we can. And, I don't want them to have to put my company name on it. What if let's put like a separate company name that kind of that ties it all together, but they can put that in on their projects and feel proud to have that, and not feel like they're putting another company's fire pit on that. So that was the idea of splitting the brand a little bit. And so we're still dialing in and fine tuning the actual design and getting feedback and figuring out the price points. Selling products is a whole different animal than just selling backyards and going to work. So apparently I like to just figure out the retail side of things, the product side of things. These are all new spaces for me that we're just figuring it out as we go. And I think as long as you treat people right and do the right thing, I think people like just want to do business with you. So.
Yeah, I couldn't love the idea anymore. Like it's so awesome, and it's awesome to see you starting to do it as well. So then when you do crack it and be successful with it, like people will get to follow the journey along the whole way. And the
Yeah.
idea of having those different garden sections as well is such a great idea. Instead, like you could go to a paving yard and see all the different pavers on the wall, but that's nothing like seeing it in an actual situation with,
Exactly.
pavers and the walls and the plants and the furniture.
I feel like every supplier does that. They've got the wall or they've got the little 4x4 squares on the ground. And it's like, all right. And I've just seen people over the years look at it and they just get overwhelmed and they look at all these pavers and there's all these options and it's just spinning around. They're like, I don't know what I want. And so it's like, well, let's block out the noise. Let's make every little vignette its own little own outdoor room. And let's just settle down in this space. And then they can go, yeah, I like this, or, what if we did this with that, and just kind of underwhelm them a little bit and disarm the whole situation. And let's just make it simplified and slow things down.
Yeah, I've heard that a lot. There's a marketing podcast I listened to, and he was talking about how even just with flavors of food or something, if you're sampling things, you don't want to have too many different flavors because then you might taste one and think, oh, that's not bad, and then another one's awesome, but then you taste some more and you forget. Whereas if you just have 3 to choose from, then you can say, yep, I
like sticking it to 2. And if they don't like one, you can take the one that they definitely don't like and bring in a third.
Yeah.
So, but at least you can go, oh, what do you like about this? What don't you like about that? And you can go from there, as opposed to here's 8 samples. It's like, it's like,
yeah.
And yes, no, or no, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard on one of the podcast you did on the How to Hardscape podcast with, I think it was like a roundtable chat you did. And you mentioned you were wanting to do your own unique paver, like you were looking to team up with one of the paving suppliers. Did that end up happening?
It finally did. I placed that order back in September and we got them last week. So, so like, what is it? It's July now. And so it took about 8 months to get those things in. But yeah, we really honed in Colorado where we are. We're just kind of right in the middle of the United States. And there's all of the other paver manufacturers are like the big plants are on the East Coast, or there's one in Utah, but none of them are local. And so I was struggling to get a decent price point for our clients. And so I just kind of thought outside the box a little bit, because I knew these commercial projects would get custom pavers made for specific like shopping centers and that kind of stuff. So I just started the conversation with my supplier. I said, hey, what does it take to just make a custom paver? Like, yeah, we just got to set something up with the plant up in Denver, which is an hour away. And so we scheduled a meeting. We went up there, looked at the different shapes, sizes, colors, finishes, and came up with a nice face mix to just kind of give it more of a high end. We picked a 3x12, just kind of like your typical brick shape, which is a little bit more modern because it is a little more linear. And I figured, hey, we can do a herringbone, a double herringbone, a running bond. We've got a lot more creative freedom with just this one paver. We just had to commit to like 5,000 square feet, which isn't that much in the grand scheme of things. I mean, you get one big job, you could sell it all on one, but the idea is that, you've got a bunch of 300 to 700 square foot patios that you sell. And now we've got the inventory in stock and we can fulfill it. I'm not waiting on anybody. And I needed to have some of that capital to be able to put that into that investment. But now that we've got it, we're going to put a couple of patios around our office that we're at now, just knowing we're still moving. We're still going to build a couple small mini vignettes because it's going to be a couple of years so we get to really build the dream out. But people want what they can see and what they can experience. And so we're going to take some of those and build some little pieces out. But they turned out great, and I'm really excited about that. So.
Yeah. So, and people want something that's unique as well. So, and so you've made this unique, and is there like a patent on it so no one else can use it?
No, there's no patent. I mean, I think if they figured out what I did, they could go the same route, I'm pretty sure. But they would just be, I'm already moving on to that. Like, how can we do the next thing? So if they're not going to be unique, they're just going to be playing catch up their whole life to us.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. No, it's an awesome idea as well. Yeah. And thinking outside of the box like that is, it's what keeps you ahead.
What problem that solved is now I've got a paver at a local price point that is comparable to the nicer ones, like the Unilock and the Techo Block are the nicer pavers over here, and I can get them, but I'm trucking them in from several states away, and it's by the time you add in the trucking, I'm paying like $12 a square foot just for the material, and now I've got these in stock for less than $6, half the cost, and so I can pass that savings on to the client and still provide something that I'm proud of. And so that's my biggest thing, is how can I create more value? And our first rule to doing business is how can we create a positive win-win relationship? And so I felt like that just really helped us hone in on that.
Yeah, I had no idea that you got all your pavers that far away. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, there's like the one plant that's here, but if you go to their stock catalog, it's like a time capsule back to the 1990s. And it's like, it's like, man, like, come on guys, let's get with it. And then, so I go there, I'm like, kind of had low expectations that we were going to even be able to figure out anything custom that would work. And so I go there and I'm like, could we do this mixed with that? They're like, we've never put the face mix on this mold before, but we've never done this color with that. I'm like, well, I think all this would work. Like, can you ask the plant people if we can make that work? And they came back and said they can make it work. I was like, all right, let's do it. So
yeah, that'd be interesting for them as well, I'd imagine, because they've been doing the same stuff for 20 years. So.
Exactly. So
going back to your designs, what sort of apps do you use for your design?
I've kind of taken a step backwards. I used to use Dynascape, and lately I've just been using the Concepts app on my iPad, and that is just a $30 sketching app. And I'm like, and I love it. I feel like it's just more natural to me to just sit there and just draw away like that, as opposed to, clicking a mouse on a CAD program.
So can you convert that to like drawings that the guys can work off in 3D and that sort of stuff?
Yeah, if it's a simple enough design, I think I just got done building a $400,000 complex project off of that, where we pulled off simple measurements off of that and did that. And if it certainly wouldn't work in the commercial world if you need to go out to public bid and that kind of thing. If you're design build, I think this is a route to go. I mean, I could create something beautiful with a spray can and an idea. If a client trusts me, we could just go out there and I could just create something unique on the fly and just say, all right, let's go. I don't need much to do it. I know how to work the architecture lines off the home and create something like that. But it's, and I think that's why the iPad works for us as a team. But if I need to, I could pass that off to somebody who could digitize it, put it in the CAD, clean it up and that kind of stuff. As it is, we work with third-party people to help us with our 3D visuals. And so I'll just hand them that sketch and they'll just recreate it into SketchUp off of my sketches and bring me back something that's a pretty good representation of the general idea of what I want the yard to look like. So
yeah, awesome. So do you do all your designs?
I've been doing less and less. I finally got a kid that's working with me who has some really good design capabilities, and he went the whole schooling route. He went the complete opposite route to do what we're doing than I did. And so he did the 5-year landscape architecture program. He did the internships and then he found us on Instagram and he's been with us for just about a year now. And the kid's going to be better than me in just a couple of years.
Is that the fellow from your podcast, the co-host?
Yeah, Sam Barkley, my co-host. So yeah, I like having him on because he brings a younger perspective and it helps just kind of build that conversation up a little bit too.
Yeah. So what was the idea behind starting the podcast?
With the fire pits coming to be a thing and just wanting to build more attention to the brand, I felt like this industry has given me so much. It's just a way that I can kind of give back a little bit too, that, just share all the mistakes I've learned. I've gotten to where I am by just making every mistake known to man. And so it's like, if I can kind of share the stories of the things that I've done wrong and people can pick up on those and maybe avoid those roadblocks that are around the corner they don't even see. And then, then I just feel like I'm making myself useful, and I'm just fulfilling my obligations of paying it forward. So,
yeah. And you've been getting good feedbacks early on?
I think so. I haven't really been advertising the podcast. I've been trying to get a little bit of a backlog before I start saying it's live, but I think if people are curious enough, they'll find it because it is up there.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll be flipping that switch here pretty soon. So.
Yeah. One of the things I found surprising when I started doing it was people like because I have guests on every episode, and the amount of people who would message me saying, like, if someone was talking about how much they were struggling with a certain thing or mistakes they made, they'd be messaging me saying that they're so glad that they're not the only ones having that issue. Like, everyone's got the same issues.
Yeah. I think that's what's helped me grow a following on Instagram, is just sharing those stories and those mistakes. I try to not leave it open-ended. I like to bring a conclusion just to share with people that, one, I don't want it to come across as whining, because I'm not. I'm just trying to be a little bit more vulnerable and transparent with the process. And I've found that to be exactly true, that people just, I think entrepreneurship, it's easy to feel like you're out on an island. Like you're just, because you've got employees that never do what you ask them to. You got family that doesn't understand, why you're working 60 hours a week. And, and then you got friends that are pissed because you're never there to hang out with them anymore. And you just, like, the beginning of entrepreneurship is just the most loneliest place that you can be. And so when you kind of can find people that are going through the similar experiences and just be like, wow, I'm not crazy, I'm not the only one. Like, I think it's comforting. And you just can kind of build this instant connection with that person because you understand each other.
Yep. And with your Instagram following, you got like 90,000 followers on the artist one. So with that many people, you obviously would have to get a lot of trolls. So how do you go with those comments?
Man, I think you just got to put the blinders on. If you're not pissing people off, you're not making a big enough wave.
Yeah, exactly.
And the one thing that I found is usually when I talk about something a little bit more controversial or polarizing, I'll get 20 like, more of this, please, love that, to 1 unfollow. How can you do this with what's going on in the world? And it's like, how bringing such drama to this channel? Like, shame on you for breeding this kind of behavior on your, you should do better. It's like, okay, I'm like, I am doing better. You're like, if you knew how many people I just helped by just talking about, what red flags I am spotting in this email from this lead, like, if you knew how many countless heartaches that these people create for people that are open and just want to, give themselves to their clients, in exchange for a fair wage. And when people like this take advantage of the people, I want the good people to avoid the people that have no respect for your time and have no, that are never going to turn into a client, especially if you're trying to do something positive in their, in the world. So, you just got to remind yourself what you're actually doing and stay focused on that. And haters will just, you just got to ignore them,
Yeah. I've only recently, because I've only recently started getting the occasional hater, and I'm pretty excited about it because, like you said, if you're not getting them, you're not getting seen enough. So I'm starting to get seen more, and I love it because I find it hard not to. I literally can't not bite back to them, because I enjoy doing it.
99% of them are just keyboard warriors.
Yeah,
where they can't even put a profile pic, on their. It's either a blank profile pic or a picture of their dog. And then you go to their profile and it's private. So it's like, what are you hiding, man? Like, you want to come to my page where I'm, like, it's the man in the arena. It's easy to sit on the sidelines and boo and hiss and judge and critique, but it's the man in the arena putting himself out there, getting the bruises, getting beat up. That everybody else is watching, wishing they could be them. So I like to think that they're just projecting because you're pointing out their weaknesses by just stepping into what they can't do themselves. And rather than asking why and, taking ownership of the situation, they're just trying to play victim and blame you or blame the other person for their situation is what I find to be true most of the time.
Yeah, exactly like you said, there's for every one negative, there's more than 20 positive. So you can't focus on just the negatives.
Yeah. And so, and what you focus on is what you're going to get more of. And so like, if you're giving all the negativity that attention, it's going to hold you back. And you got to focus on, wow, I helped 20 people. Yeah, I pissed off one, but it's like, I helped 20 people, like, and only 20 people spoke up and said something. You can easily 10x that. So, I mean, I helped 200 people because, I'm not one online to really engage all the time, especially with people online that I'm not real strangers with. I think Yardist has definitely helped me with that to maybe reach out a little bit more. But I found being on the receiving end that, people, when you make a connection, they love to reach out and say thanks. So, yeah. And I like hearing it. It keeps me motivated. So
how many staff have you got at the moment?
I think we're in the mid 20s, about 23 right now. So.
And do you have plans to are you knocking back work because you can't take it on, or what's the situation there?
No, we're booked out till November with one crew and January for the others. We've been trying to figure out what works best for Hiner. And I think the more we do this, the more we're honing in on, all right, well, we're really good at water features and we're good at the landscaping. And so, and we're good at, designing these spaces, but like, how can we get in and out a little bit faster? So we've been trying to team up with more subcontractors that are a little bit more specialty. So this year we brought on just a hardscape team where a hardscape company where all they do is pavers and a little bit of masonry, but they can come in, they can lay the pavers down twice as fast as us. They're doing a better job than us, frankly. And they're doing it at a price that is cheaper after we mark them up than what we were able to do in-house. And so, it came back to our first rule of business. It just created a win-win-win-win all the way around. I can pass on those savings to the client. The client's getting a better product than if we just try to be the jack of all trades. So it's like, let's hone on what we're really good on, and let's just team up with other like-minded subcontractors that stay in their lane, and we can just be good at the marketing and the designing and the bringing and the clients, and then they can just ride under our coattails and make the good living that they want. And I felt like that's a good direction for us to grow. And but we still have the capabilities. If times get real tight, we can always tighten back up, and rather than leaning on subcontractors, we can just lean on ourselves a bit more again. So
that's awesome, because everyone wins that way, because they're getting plenty of work and different sources of work, and you're making more money. And that sounds awesome. And you mentioned early on one of your core values. What are your core values?
Oh, we've got several. So from actually, we've got 12, more than the typical 4 to 5 that a lot of companies have. We've got build positive win-win relationships, better than yesterday. We've got one that we call roll the red, which in turn it's a short term internally. That means like, let's create a red carpet experience for our clients. Like, let's make them feel special, make them feel like a celebrity when they're working with us. We've got be proactive, play the long game, which is one of ours, like making decisions. Like sometimes you got to lose the battle to win the war, per se. And then we've got take ownership and initiative. And we've got good isn't enough, excellence is essential. And so that's a big one. We just strive for excellence around here. And then I've got have passion and pride in your work. If you're not passionate, you don't have pride in what you're doing. If you're not getting out your phone and taking pictures of what you did at the end of the day, you're not going to be a good fit around here. Lead by example. That's a big one. I expect everybody to just be leading, like not do as I say, do as I do type of situation. Do the right thing, stay humble, and our most important one, have fun. So
yeah. How do you go about when you're putting on new staff, like making them live those values?
Not only do we just have them posted all over the office, if they ever ask me a question, I answer with a core value, basically. And I put it back in their court to try and get them to answer their own question and to lean on the core values of who we are to help guide them to learn how to make and to problem solve and make their own decisions on their own. So that way they can be a lot more autonomous and they don't need me. So.
Yep. And do you do anything outside of work to keep your staff like enjoying their job as much as they obviously do?
Yeah, being a small business, we didn't have a lot of the perks available. So we've got a thing called Top Golf. Are you familiar with Top Golf?
Yeah.
It's like bowling meets golf.
Yeah.
And so I did a company membership there. So a lot of the office staff can go hit whack some balls whenever they want there, and so and we'll do barbecues and hang out and a couple times a year at least. And then I always try and schedule one or two like conferences that I can take team members with, so we can bond doing that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah, awesome. Well, this chat, I'm always watching the time when I'm doing my chats, and this one has gone quicker than any other I've done since I started. So yeah, absolutely loved having this chat, and I can't thank you enough for taking the time to come on, Matt. Really appreciate it.
Joel, my pleasure, man. I could talk for hours with you, buddy.